Welcome to Synagogues of the Ukraine Part 6. No intention here to start a political debate, but we're looking at Simferopol, which we have listed as both the Ukraine and also in the Crimean Peninsula an autonomous district. However you want to call this area, this is known as the Chabad Lubavitch Center of the Crimea. If the information we have is correct, its director is a Rabbi Livzik. This next shul is in Zaporizhia. That's on the Dnieper River in southeastern Ukraine. A lot of Cossacks used to live here. As one can see, this building is under repair. It was returned to the Jewish community and now under the care of the Chabad Lubavitch and its director, Rabbi Nachum Ehrenfreu. The Lubavitch have made sure that there's both a Jewish day school and a mikveh in the area. The building was returned around 2012. The city is located about 370 miles southeast of Kiev. There are about 20,000 Jews living in this city of over 700,000. Husiatain is a village in the western Ukraine. It has no more than about 7,000 people. This is supposedly a recent picture of its synagogue building. What you can't see is that the roof has caved in. Coming up are pictures from at least 25 years ago, including a small portion of the Aron Kodesh, or the Holy Ark. It was built in the design of a fortress to repel attacks from non-Jews. In Yiddish, the city was called Gushyatin. For many years it was a Hasidic stronghold. At one time Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav lived here. In the late 1700s the city was partitioned between the Austrians and the Russians using the Zabrats River as the dividing line. Therefore, some Jews would have considered themselves Galicianos, while others Litvische Russians. As for the synagogue building itself, this version was constructed in the late 1700s. It was damaged extensively during World War II. Between the 1960s and 1970s, the building was converted into a museum. By the 1990s, without any new funding, the building deteriorated and is now vacant. By the way, this supposedly was the house that the rabbi lived in. Lutsk is in northwestern Ukraine. Here's another example of a fortress-style synagogue built in around 1629. It was called the Great Synagogue of Lutsk. Damaged during World War II, it was restored in the 1970s, however, to be now used as a sports club. Here's a ruined synagogue in the western part of the Ukraine, in a small village of about 6,000 called Veliki Mosti. It was built around 1900. During World War II, the Germans rounded up the local Jews, put them in the building, and burnt them alive. We're now in Uzhgorod, also known previously as Ungvar, in the western Ukraine. This previous synagogue building was constructed around 1904. It is now used as a concert hall. The only connection to its Jewish heritage is the fact that there's a memorial plaque that commemorates the 85,000 Jews who once lived in the area. Here is a synagogue building that is in Shchenitsia. The Poles call it Shadnitka. It's no longer used as synagogue, but it was not destroyed by the Germans, and it is the only remaining wooden synagogue structure. This synagogue building was in Shaharad or Shargorod. It was built in 1589, also as a fortress-style building. In the late 1600s, for about 25 years, the Turks overran and controlled the city and turned this synagogue into a mosque. Once they were forced out, it reverted back to its original use. The Soviets took possession of the building for its own purpose But happy to say that in 2012 the building was returned to the remaining Jewish community of Shargorod. This was the synagogue in Ovruch, which is in the Zhytomyr region. Jews lived here since the early 1600s. In fact, at one time there were 7 synagogues. The Russians didn't treat the Jews here any better than the Nazis would have. Their army staged a pogrom in 1917. This started an exodus from the area. By 1939, there were less than 4,000 Jews living in Ovruch, which was about 33% of the total population. Historical data indicates that there were about 1,500 Jews from Ovruch area who were killed by the Nazis during the Holocaust. Our final stop in Ukraine takes us to one of a personal interest. Call this what you want. In Yiddish it was Pavlich. In German it was Pawlacz. And in Polish, Pawlacz. It's the birthplace of my mother's father. This is most likely the shul or synagogue that he went to in the early 1900s before he left for America. In Chicago at one time he was the president of the Anshe Pavlich Synagogue, a place of worship closed for many years. This village, which is about 100 kilometers southwest of Kiev, was for all practical purposes Jewish. The majority left between the years 1917 and 1923 when the Soviets took control of the country. These middle-class people were not interested in becoming communists. This concludes our look at the Jewish houses of worship in the Ukraine. It's possible we skip some. It's not always easy to get all the information we'd like to get a hold of. So, now it's on to another country. Bye for now, and see you real soon.